Tanki Classic's balance is busted. Let's talk about it. If you played Tanki Classic for any given amount of time like I have, you probably already know that the balance is really bad right now. A lot of people are critiquing it. I've seen a lot of people in the in-game chat on the left-hand side complaining about it, most notably the Acida and Firebird. And rather than just jumping on top of the pile and saying, hey, this something needs to be done, I figured I'd actually give some recommendations on what could be done to fix the issues. Let's start with Smokey. Now, obviously, this is a mainstay of the game. Everybody loves your casual Smokey player, mostly because they're really easy to kill. Smokey's not good. Smokey is the beta version of every other gun in the game right now. Tanki already tried to balance it out for new players by making Smokey M3 and Wasp M3 the default. I don't know if you guys noticed this. I haven't seen a whole lot of YouTube coverage on Classic because there haven't been that many updates. They did actually go in and try and make it easier for new players. They standardized the M0 through M3 modifications for Wasp and Smokey. You can tell because if you go click on Hornet, it shows, because all light hulls have the same stats right now. It shows what the stats were before, and you can see they actually did see that recruits were getting hammered, and they were like, all right, let's step in and do something here. In my opinion, there's no reason for Smokey not to be viable at a high level. It's just not right now. It's just a weak version of Thunder, and I'll get to this later, but also Shaft, and it just needs a bit of a buff. So in my opinion, take the gimmick to the next level. Smokey's crit shot is what makes it special. So you need to do something that'll keep Smokey that default basic gun, but enhances that critical shot. So I have two ideas for this. Either you increase the firing speed slightly, that'll increase the number of times you hit a crit shot, and then in order to balance that, you'd have to nerf the damage a little bit. I think that would be the ideal solution for Smokey right now. That way it still stays its unique turret, but its critical damage, which is the gimmick that it has, is the main focal point of the turret. On a lighter note, this is probably just a one line of code change, but you just adjust the critical rate to 33%. That way, on average, you're going to hit a critical shot 1 out of 3 times. It still stays that single tank damage turret, so it's not replacing Thunder in its role. It's not replacing Twins because it's shooting faster at a medium range. I still think the first solution is better because that way you don't have to adjust the critical rate or anything. You just make sure that the critical shows up more often. I think that could move Smokey back up to where it should be in the meta. I don't think it should be like a front lines, I'm going to run into somebody's base and hammer everybody kind of turret. As a semi-supportive mid-range turret, I think that's where it should be. Just every once in a while hit a crit shot and do some heavy damage. Next up is Twins. Twins is by far the worst turret in the game. I hate it. I hate playing with it. It's terrible. I never see anybody playing with it in Classic. You used to never see anybody playing with it in Tanki Online as well. Well, I take that back. There was a particular kit back then. I believe it was called the Minotaur kit. It was Viking and Twins M2. That was pretty strong, but that was before self-damage. That was back when people would run into you and almost flip you by using a low hull like Viking and pushing up against your hull. Right now it sucks. You have to swing really far out of cover in order to use both of your barrels, and you can't just use one barrel anymore because the other barrel shoots the wall and does self-damage. I think self-damage is the worst thing to happen to Twins ever, and I don't know why it's in Classic, because that was a relatively late change to the balance, and nobody really liked it at the time either. Twins has always been Ricochet's useless younger brother. I feel like it's time for it to be viable at a high level once again. You can no longer utilize that high impact force that it used to have because of the self-damage. The range is completely useless because the projectiles are slow as hell. You cannot use this thing effectively because you have to predict where the enemy is going. It is near impossible to kill a wasp that is going perpendicular to your screen because you have to predict where it's going so much. In order to fix Twins, I would remove area damage entirely. I just think it was a terrible change. And then I'd buff pretty much everything else about the turret. Increase the firing speed. That's kind of Twins' mainstay. You put a brick on the space bar and then you just go to town, right? Increase the firing speed, increase the projectile speed so it's not as difficult to use, and increase the range because right now it just gets absolutely demolished by every other close range turret. Acida kills it. Acida has the same range pretty much with no damage fall off. Firebird toasts it from at the same range. It's so bad. I don't even know what to say at this point. I don't even know if there's any salvaging it. This is just my recommendation. We'll see what happens. If people start using it, they'll have to be on supplies in order to use it. I don't know that it can even be a front of the line turret. You know, maybe if you have like twins Titan and then you have like a Viking Acida healing you in the back, it's viable. But I mean, there's so many other turrets that in the same situation you could use, you know? Whatever. Firebird is by far the hardest turret to balance. And I know some people would want to give that credit to Freeze, which I'm not going to cover in this video because we're not seeing a whole lot of it yet in TC. But if you nerf Firebird too hard, it becomes completely useless. I mean, because all it is a raw damage turret. It brings nothing to the table except for the fact that it can go get in somebody's base and fuck up their whole day. It's just not a fun turret to be on the receiving end of. And to be honest with you, I like that. This is going to be a bit of a hot take because I know a lot of people want me to say, oh, nerf the hell out of Firebird. Everybody's using Firebird in Tanki Classic. It really needs to get nerfed to the floor. I don't think it needs that big of a nerf. I think the afterburn needs a nerf. I have no issue with the initial damage itself. We're not seeing a whole lot of long-range maps in the test right now, purely because people are using Firebird so much, they'd rather play on a small-range map. We're not in a position where a lot of these long-range turrets, like Shaft, Railgun, Thunder, are in their, like, heyday, because everybody starts with Firebird, and everybody wants to play on Firebird-friendly maps, right? So I feel like it's a bit overblown how overpowered it is right now. Farther down the line, when people start unlocking better turrets and they want to play on maps with a bit more range, like, you can't use Firebird on certain maps because it's bad. If you've ever used a close-range turret on maps like highways or stadium, you know it's a nightmare. So it needs to compensate somehow. I think it's got to be the closest thing to a melee turret we have. I'm okay with Firebird filling that role. I think the afterburn needs a complete rework. I would much prefer the tick be, I think, less damage. I'm okay with the length. I know people are going to disagree with that too, but I'm actually okay with how long the tick is. I would just much prefer that it does less damage so that it's not a guaranteed kill as soon as you touch somebody. Right now, if you play against Firebird, the moment it touches you, you turn red, or at least at M3 level, you turn red, and then you die after a couple seconds, even if you kill it. Firebird is the ultimate kamikaze turret because even if you're on a Wasp Firebird, you can kill a Titan because of how much damage that thing does after you die. I think that needs a rework. Maybe even buff the base damage. I don't know. We'll see. I think right now all that needs to be done is tone back the damage on the afterburn, and then it'll be fine. A brief editor's note after the fact here. Currently, the max amount of afterburn is enough to kill a wasp from full HP. I found that out this morning when I was playing. It needs a nerf drastically. Next up is Railgun. I have a few complaints here. Right now, it feels a little underpowered. Again, that's probably because the map pool is very friendly to close-range turrets, but I think damage-wise, it's in a good place. It should never be the one-shot machine. That should be reserved for Shaft exclusively. It is at a point where if you hit somebody with Railgun, they're pretty much guaranteed on 1 HP unless they're on, like, Titan. It is a pillar of balance. Slow reload, high damage. It's kind of like a supply and demand kind of dynamic there. And I think that's a good thing. I think right now, I wouldn't adjust the damage at all. I think it'll be much more viable when better maps come out. I just think that the impact force needs a bit of a buff so that you actually have a chance against these really close range turrets. So like if you get chased down by a Firebird, I do feel like Railgun should have the power to, if you have good enough aim and if you are high skilled enough, knock somebody, especially like a Wasp or a Hornet, knock somebody 90 degrees off. Buy yourself a little bit more time to get that second shot off. I think that would balance Railgun out completely, but other than that, I don't really have any complaints. I don't even know that it needs a change. That would just be something I would like to see. All right, it's the one you've all been waiting for. This one has to be addressed at some point because it's just ridiculous. Acida is a nightmare. It is unbeatable right now. If you have an entire team of Acidas, you're going to win every battle you're in. You don't need like, oh, I'm a long-range turret. I'm a short-range turret. Let's build a balanced team comp. If you have an army of Acidas, you will not lose ever. You will probably remain 2.5 KD in an 8v8 match if everybody's using Acida. That's how strong it is right now. I'd call it the jack of all trades, but it's quite literally the Tom Brady of all trades. For those of you that aren't American, Tom Brady's the guy that won 7 Super Bowls. He's won more Super Bowls than any franchise in the NFL. My point is, it's better than everything at everybody else constantly. Vampirism is absurdly strong. I like Vampirism. I remember when it was really strong back then, too. It's absurdly strong now. Acida can go toe-to-toe with Firebird. I was using Firebird Titan kind of as a bit of a joke earlier today. I played against an Acida Hunter. It was beating me consistently and living through the afterburn. That is how much Vampirism affects 1v1 fights. It does more or equal damage than Fireburn and Freeze, which is just absurd. It's just not supposed to be that kind of turret. Acida isn't supposed to be a, jump in the front lines and beat the ever-living crap out of the other team kind of turret. The healing is insane. Healing, if you have an Acida up your ass, you can beat anybody. It's ridiculous. It removes effects instantly as well. There's no like over time, oh, let me slowly, remove the burning effect or freezing effect. It is instant. As soon as the Acida touches you, you're healed. It's like touching Jesus's robe. Here's my set of changes that I would make. Now, I know a lot of people are going to want me to come out right and say, kill Acida. Just nerf it into the ground, make it completely useless unless you're healing somebody. I'm only gonna go halfway there. I think you don't need to remove Vampirism. You can just nerf the damage, and by extension, Vampirism will be nerfed because Vampirism takes a percentage of the damage you're doing and applies it to yourself. So if you decrease the damage, Vampirism is also going to have less of an effect on the battle. To balance that out, the fact that it's not going to be able to take those 1v1 fights against pretty much anybody anymore, I think you increase the range a little bit to give it a better chance against Firebird and Freeze, because it's not the same turret. It's not supposed to be the insane close range damage dealer, and you reduce the speed that status effects are removed. Essentially what you're doing here, you're nerfing the damage and increasing the range. You're forcing it to play this more supportive passive role, and it's also balancing the healing out a little bit. But right now, the way it's being used, I see this on polygon control points especially. You get a lot of these guys, I can name 3 of them off the top of my head. Shout out Nire for being one of the first people that started using it like crazy. It's broken. You just run at somebody and you kill them. It's pretty much impossible to lose a 1v1 with an Acida. I just think that Acida is too strong right now in 1v1s. It shouldn't be that run in and punch everybody turret. It shouldn't be playing the role of Firebird. It should be playing a supportive role. You should be healing your guys that are running Firebird, Hammer, these guys that are supposed to get in people's faces and really fuck up the other team's strategy, maybe do some spawn killing. You shouldn't be the guy doing that. Moving on to Thunder, I've only seen 2 of these, but I've seen it enough that I do feel the need to comment on it. Thunder is just a better Smokey right now. I do like the current balance of the turret itself because of the damage fall off. Like, it's not as aggressive at long ranges, unlike Railgun and Shaft. But I do think a slight damage nerf would make Smokey a bit more viable. It keeps Thunder as that crowd control monster that, will screw over an entire team. Hey, let's all go to 1 point. That's going to cook that strategy forever. That's the role that Thunder should be playing, but it makes 1v1s with other turrets a bit more difficult, right? Thunder's that crowd control guy, basically to tenderize everybody before somebody goes in there with a higher damage turret and kills everybody else. I used to call it an assist machine when I was younger, even though people really did use Thunder effectively with Viking in more of an aggressive manner. You'd get hit so much by Thunder across the map by like being close to other people that taking 1v1s after seeing a Thunder was always a terrible idea. That's the only change I really have in mind for Thunder. I still think it's relatively balanced. We'll see what happens once people start playing long-range maps again, but I don't know. Lastly, Shaft. Shaft does not play its role at all because, again, we don't have any long-range maps in the pool right now. I mean, I say that like it's a competitive pool, but really, people just aren't picking long-range maps because everybody's stuck on these really medium-range turrets, and nobody wants to play these long maps. But what I will say is I think it needs a nerf already. The arcade shot is ridiculous. It's got a faster reload than Smokey, and it does the same if not more damage. Obviously it doesn't have a critical, but I mean, you shouldn't be able to play control points on polygon with Shaft Titan and have like a 1.5 KD. I've seen a couple people doing that, and like I respect the hustle, but come on, that's not what Shaft should be using for. Shaft should be the sniper. Everybody knows that. It shouldn't be viable on polygon, ping pong, and island. It's just ridiculous. Because it really is a turret that can turn the tide of a battle. I mean, Shaft was always such a pain in the ass growing up because you'd be like 2 meters from capping a flag, and then you're dead instantly because every shaft on the map was trained on your position. It is a game-changing turret when used properly, and I think the arcade shot, it shouldn't do as much damage as it's doing. So for me, I think in order to fix that, I'm okay with a high damage close range shot, but I think it needs to be slower. I think it should have twice the reload that it has right now, so it can't just replace Smokey altogether. Smokey is that close range, medium range, death by 1,000 paper cuts gun. Shaft should not be in that role at all. That's just my opinion. I think we'll see a lot more of Shaft when other maps like Rio and Highways and all these other iconic long-range maps where you have very helpful Shaft spots, I'm sure we'll see it come back in full force, start one-shotting people and stuff again, yada yada. But I think as it stands right now, it shouldn't be encroaching on that Smokey role. All right, guys, this was just part one. Obviously, we haven't seen a lot of turrets, so like Freeze, Rico, looking forward to seeing how those play into the meta coming up. But right now, assuming we have a reset pretty soon, because Tanki devs should be coming back from Christmas break, I felt the need to put this out there, at least just to get the ball rolling. I'm not seeing a lot of people talk about the balance, and as somebody that's played a lot back when the game started out and recently in Classic, I think that some changes are definitely needed right off the bat so that we don't have to deal with this the second time around. That way we can actually see multiple turrets being played, especially Twins, man. Twins is just terrible right now. You could not pay me to use Twins. Please don't offer to pay me to use Twins. Actually, pay me to use Twins. Please pay me to use Twins. I don't really feel the need to talk about overdrives because we haven't seen any of the other overdrives yet, and the one we have right now seems actually extraordinarily balanced. I'm mildly impressed by the devs for taking the initiative and hammering the overdrives issue home early, at least from what I can tell right now. I'll probably make a part 2 in order to cover the other turrets once they come out, if we get to that point. I don't know if we'll have a reset by then, but yeah, that's it for now. Have a good one, guys.